Surely when a car manufacturer creates their own typeface, that shows a care and attention to detail. So after living with the Polestar 2 for 1 month, is it timeless and classy like Helvetica, or clunky and unpleasant like Comic Sans? It's the most niche intro I've ever done. So this is a Polestar 2. This is a long-range single-motor version. It's actually the older model, so it's front-wheel drive. Newer ones are rear-wheel drive. Other than that, you can't actually see very much difference between this and the new ones, apart from the grille. So the grille is black and kind of all these blocks. The new one is flat. I see so many of these on the roads, and I've always thought, oh yeah, I really want to try that. And now I have. I've had this one for a month. A pheasant just walked past there, distracted me for a second. If you're looking at this and you think it looks a bit Volvo-esque, well, that's because Polestar is a Volvo spin-off. It's owned by Geely, the big Chinese group. So let's have a little look at the design. Somehow it manages to be sporty and sensible at the same time. I think it looks great. And if you're a Star Wars fan like me, with all the black and the white, don't you think it looks a bit Stormtrooper-esque? I think it's got some beautiful, sharp, clean lines. While most cars tend to have quite a feline expression, this one looks more like an angry robot. So while we're looking from the front, the width is 1,859 millimeters, including the mirrors, it's 1,985. 1,479 millimeters height and 4,607 millimeters long. It's quite refreshing actually, given that there are so many SUVs or crossovers around. It's quite refreshing that it's a saloon sedan. You see it's a fastback, kind of swoops at the back a little bit, and that gives it quite an aerodynamic, sporty look. But you've still got fairly decent headroom really, and pretty decent boot, which I'll show you in a minute. Beautiful clean lines pretty much everywhere really. I love this crease down here. It's only the crease above the wheel arch that I'm not a big fan of. Also the plastic around here feels a bit weird, feels a bit cheap. Anyway, you'll notice you've got kind of normal looking handles. You do have keyless entry and lovely frameless mirrors. Classy clean lines continue at the back. I'm a sucker for light bars. I love light bars. It just looks so cool, I think. Not much more to say about it really. It's just, you know, pure class, I think. Something you will notice though, no rear wiper. I haven't driven it very much in the rain, but I haven't noticed any real visibility problems or anything. I think because it's a fastback, it's fairly aerodynamic. That doesn't get grimy. Not in my experience anyway. This will tow up to 1,500 kilograms. You can tell what battery and motor the Polestar 2 has because they literally stick it to the side of the car on a funky little sticker here. I wish all the specs were stuck all over the place like this because it would make it much easier for me to try and remember all these things. Anyway, this is the 78 kilowatt hour battery size and it's got a 170 kilowatt motor. This has 11 kilowatts AC charging, or it will charge at 149 kilowatts on DC. That gives you a 10 to 80% charge in about 31 minutes. And because it does actually preheat the battery when you input a charging station on the sat nav, you should actually get that speed most of the time, even in winter. But I've not tested that. So if you're a Polestar 2 owner, please tell me in the comments if that's true. To access the boot, you can either use the remote, of course, open it from inside, or you can do this. And I know that seems like a gimmick, but if you're carrying something big and heavy, actually that's absolutely brilliant. So you just do a little kick. Works every time. You don't have to do any kind of weird swiping or anything like that, just a kick. The boot is pretty big actually, I think. It's 405 litres and it's 1,095 litres if you put the seats down. But nobody cares about the litres, do they? So let's get out the tape measure and measure it properly. So you've got about 100 centimetres of depth, about 100 centimetres of width as well. And with the seats down, you've got about 190 centimetres. And you've got about 40 centimetres up to the parcel shelf. This lifts up as well, and you've got a surprising amount of room down there. I would say about 26 centimetres depth, although it is a bit of a weird shape, but you could stick duffel bags and things like that under there. So it's not too bad a size, but let's stick some luggage in. Horizontally, you can fit 2 big bags in. You've got a little bit of room at the front here. You could probably stuff some other things. You don't have very much more height, so you can't put in any other bags like this. But if I take that out, you could just about put in 2 bits of carry-on luggage as well. But you do have like plenty of space around here that you can move around. And of course, if you put the seats down, that's absolutely fine. If we remove the parcel shelf, quite a flimsy. Okay, so we've got 2 carry-on bags, 2 proper big bags, and let's see if it closes. Yes, it's a pretty good size, really. The frunk, or the fruit, if you prefer to call it the fruit, is a great place to store your charging cables. So both the granny cable and the standard Type 2 cable are both in there. Got a repair kit up here, screen wash. So let's measure it. You've got about 80 centimetres width, and the depth is 32 centimetres going up to the top here, but that's the highest edge. You've only got about 23 centimetres on the other side, but definitely room for a decent soft travel bag. In the back there's pretty good leg room actually. I've got loads of space for my knees. The seats themselves feel quite low down, so I can't put my feet right under, but it's not too bad. On the centre console here, you've got these vents here. I'm not convinced by the vent design, but anyway, 2 USBs tucked under this weird little, quite ugly looking panel here that opens out. But it's pretty comfortable. All I would say is this transmission tunnel, it's not a transmission tunnel actually, it's where they've put some of the batteries. So I think batteries go all the way under like most EVs, but then they've put a bit more under there. But this bump really gets in the way, and it means that it's not really good for 3 adults in the back. It feels quite high up. The other 2 seats here, quite nice and low down, but this feels quite high up. I mean, you get a good view, of course, of the front of the car, but it's only really any good for a child or an adult doing short distances. But even in the middle here, if I just see, I've got just over a fist of headroom here, and I'm about 5'10" to 5'11". That's about 180 centimeters, something like that. I can never remember. And there's not much else to talk about really in the back. You've got 2 ISOFIX for the back seats, and then you've actually got ISOFIX in the front passenger seat as well, which is nice. But generally, I mean, it's fine in here, but I mean, there's nothing too special in the back. You've got a hook for your clothes just there. Although, as my brother pointed out, when he saw me driving with some clothes hanging there, they kind of get in the way of the door.
And then the only option I've got is to close the door like
and
that
ruin my shirt.
and ruin my shirt. I'm not sure about that.
Overall, it's nice enough in here, but really no good for 5 adults. If you're used to SUVs or crossovers, then it might feel a little bit low down at first. But actually, I think the visibility in here is really good. And the bonnet, although it looks quite big, I don't find it too big. It's not too bad at all. Yeah, it's a lovely driving position, and the steering wheel feels nice. The first thing you'll notice when you get inside the Polestar 2 is the car turns on automatically, so that's a great thing. And really, it's one of those things that really all EVs should have. Teslas have had it, of course, since day one. Volkswagens have it. It's great that Polestar has it. I don't know why more don't have it. It's great. So you just get in the car and it's on, you get out the car and you don't have to worry about turning it off. It just turns off on its own. I mean, it's quite cosy, especially cosy because you've got this center console which gets in the way in the middle. I don't know why it has to be so big, and to be honest, it's a bit of a pain really, because on a long journey, especially if you have long legs, your knee might touch the side of the center console, and that's a little bit unpleasant actually. I would rather that was padded. It's a kind of it's a soft-ish plastic, this, but it's still not ideal. One of the few things about this car I'm really not fond of This particular trim level doesn't have a heated steering wheel, but surely other trim levels do, because that's a bit of a weird omission, really. You've got quite a lot of piano black. I mean, generally it's very tastefully done, the interior. Lots of these materials feels like a kind of, probably some sort of recycled plastic. I'm not sure, to be honest. Quite rubbery plastic. But there is a lot of piano black. And piano black is your worst enemy, really, because firstly it shows off the fingerprints, and secondly it gets scratched really easily. And I don't understand why the parts that you touch more are piano black, because already I can see there's some scratches here. Because, you know, if you've got a ring or jingly jangly jewellery, then it's going to scratch. So that's a bit annoying. But other than that, yes, you've got the buttons that you would want probably on the steering wheel, so cruise control, voice commands, and your media controls on the right. Also, weirdly, on here you've got buttons here for adjusting the cruise control distance between you and the car in front, but because this doesn't have that option, so those buttons are redundant, really. Other than that, there's not actually that many buttons on here. It's quite minimalist. If you like minimalist cabins, then I think you'll like this. I would prefer a few more buttons, to be honest, but you've got the essentials. You've got defrosting rear and front windscreens. I don't like this play pause button. It's really difficult to tell. Sometimes it clicks quite nicely, but when I'm driving, I feel like I never get it in the right... Yeah, if I hit it like here, then it doesn't do anything. So you've got to be quite exact, which when you're driving along is quite difficult, I think. Maybe I'm just an idiot. A lovely tactile volume control, quite clicky and lovely. That's something I noticed on here, and actually I'm really impressed with. Tell me if this is something that's in your car as well. Perhaps it's in all cars, but it's hidden away in menu options and not noticed. Anyway, when you do the volume control, there's a little button on the top right, and if you press that, you can see that you've got the volume controls for everything you would want. So your music, your calls, alerts, voice commands, navigation, and assuming this one is just general overall volume. So that's really great that that's all in there, because so often when I'm driving along and I think that the navigation is not loud enough, I've got to wait for it to do some sort of navigation command, turn left at the next light, and then I've got to turn up the volume to adjust the navigation volume. That's what I do in most cars, and I'm probably an idiot for not finding the right menu option for that. But anyway, it's nice that it's just there, quite simple. Now, I would like the heating controls as physical buttons. One of my pet peeves, really, is that some EVs don't have that. If you do want to access it, go down here at the bottom, and you can do heated seats. You've got climate controls here, and you can change that to, of course, auto and all that kind of stuff here. And you can set preheating and pre-cooling as well if you want to, so it means you can get in the car every day and it's set to a schedule to make it nice and comfortable for you. So that's all at the bottom of the screen, so when you're driving along it's always there. There's a light and a decent sized vanity mirror that I'm sure my wife would be happy with. The seats are quite firm, but they're comfortable. These ones are fabric, which I like, and in fact my daughter, one of the reasons she likes this car is that it doesn't smell of leather, because she has a problem with the smell of leather. So so I think it's bit of a winner in that respect. This is the normal version of the car. You can get a performance version, and the performance one has orange seat belts and orange calipers on the brakes, and so the performance version looks a bit funkier, but anyway, I think it's tastefully done. I like it. This trim level lacks wireless charging, but you do have wireless charging in some of them. You've got two USB-C ports in the front here. Other than that, there's not really much more to talk about other than this very odd shaped gear selector, which is quite funky, I suppose. Certainly distinctive. Stingy with space in here, though. You don't have much space at all. The door card here is... You've got room for a tallish bottle, I suppose, lying down, but that's not great. You've got these little... You've got some weird pockets either side of the centre console. Can't really put much in there. I just put my microfiber cloth for cleaning the screen. In fact, look at the dust. One cup holder and another cup holder hiding in here. Quite why you would want another cup holder there, I don't know. That's strange. But yeah, because you've got this hulking big centre console taking up so much space. It just feels like a bit of a rubbish use of space, really. I would love to know if there's something inside here. I just really want to know whether this is being used for anything. And while we're looking at the infotainment screen, I'll just do you a really, really quick view on here. First of all, you've got Google Maps. Google Maps is one of the reasons this car is so good, I think. And that is because Google is the actual operating system that runs all the software in the car. I've found Google to be a really good operating system for a car, and I've used one other car that has it, and that's the Renault Megane, and I loved it. And I love it because there is a sort of there's a kind of a stability about it, I think, and it makes it far better, I think, than a lot of other infotainment systems. A lot of car infotainment systems are shocking, and you just think, why don't they just use Google? So you've got Google Maps, first of all. And the great thing about Google Maps is, of course, Google Maps, as we all know, I think Google Maps is one of the most reliable, best mapping systems. But not only that, it knows the car's battery percentage. And if you go to a destination, if you want to navigate to a destination, it will tell you where it has to charge, or it suggests anyway, where you might want to charge. It will tell you what battery percentage you'll have when you get to that charger, and it will tell you how long you have to charge for. Let's go to Land's End. Cornwall, Land's End, Penzance. Okay. Multiple charging stops are required. It says 3 charging stops with a total of 57 minutes of charging. So it makes it an 8-hour, 6-minute journey, 354 miles. So if I go to route details, it's saying I should charge at Maidstone. I should go there for 25 minutes. There's this Instavolt charger there, and then another one, Ionity Bodmin. And if you click on that, it tells you how many chargers there are there. And it tells you how many are being used. It also says amenities nearby, 100 foot to McDonald's, KFC, all this sort of stuff. Really, really good. Love it. And there's a phone number. I can't think why you would want that. But anyway, it tells you if it's open 24 hours, all this sort of stuff. All the basics, really, all the stuff that you should know. So, that's just great. And that just gives you complete confidence. Here we go. I could just get in the car and drive off. And I know that it's also really reliable. So I've done a few long journeys in this, and if it tells you that you're going to get there with 13%, I've not been able to get it worse than it suggests. It gives you a pretty conservative estimate, really. So you probably would get to the first one at 15%, and of course then you'd be charging for a little less time. But anyway, it's just really, really good. Fantastic, really. It's so easy. Let's go to Rome. Sorry to bore you with this, but okay, obviously going to Italy is a journey I do quite a lot. So it says 8 charging stops, a total of 2 hours, 34 minutes, and it would be 21.5 hours to get there. Now I know you might be watching this and you might have a diesel and you'll be saying, well, okay, I can do that in one go in my diesel. You can't, but I can just stop once in my diesel, but you can't in electric cars yet. But frankly, I wouldn't want to do it all in one go anyway, because I need to do a pee stop every 2 hours. So that would be absolutely fine. And I think it would be fine for most people, to be honest, especially if you've got family, because if you've got kids, generally they're going to want to stop, aren't they, to get something to eat. Anyway, long story short, this is brilliant. There we go. I decide I want to go to Rome, and I can just go. If I go back to the app screen, you also see we've got YouTube. So the other day I was just waiting for my daughter. She was at an art class and I was just waiting for her, and it was a beautiful day actually, and I went for a little walk, but I sat in the car, and because I was testing it, I thought, well, okay, I'm going to try using YouTube, because it's the first time I've ever used YouTube in this car, or any other in fact, and it's actually quite good watching YouTube. It's a portrait screen, so it gets chopped off on the top and bottom, but still it's quite nice watching YouTube just in the car. And I put this on Twitter, quite an innocent tweet. I thought, hey, look, it's great having YouTube in the car. But of course, put anything on social media and these shall be judged. And I had, why aren't you reading a book? This is a problem with people today. Why didn't you go for a walk? Blah, blah, blah. God, all right, okay. Anyway, if you want to use YouTube, you can. And of course, if you're charging, it's a good way to pass the time if you don't want to go for a walk. If it's weather like this, you probably wouldn't want to go for a walk. And obviously, you can't use YouTube while you're driving. So the moment you start driving, it will grey it out and you can't use it sensibly, because if you're driving and you've got someone in the passenger watching YouTube, then that's not good, is it? And if I click on the journey log, it's going to show me all the different journeys I've done recently. Weirdly, and this is kind of annoying, it tells you the distance, great. It tells you the consumption, great. It doesn't tell you what your efficiency is. So that was 17.4 miles and it was 4.4 kilowatt hours used. So you've got to do some maths to work out what your efficiency is. What's 17.4 divided by 4.4?
The answer is approximately 3.954545.
Just less than 4 miles per kilowatt hour then, the efficiency. I don't know why it doesn't tell you that. Down here you've got phone and Apple CarPlay. It's the best implementation I've seen of CarPlay. I tend to use CarPlay mainly for playing music and mapping, because actually I find Apple Maps pretty good these days. And you would assume perhaps that Apple Maps wouldn't be very good on the Polestar 2 given that it's a Google system, but it's brilliant. It shows the mapping on here and it shows it on the dash as well, and you can switch between the two because you get a different view on each. You get directions on one and you get the kind of a zoomed out view on the other, and you can swap between the two. That's the first time I've ever seen it projected onto the dash as well, so that's really, really good. And not only that, it gives you charging stations. So if you're driving along and you just want to find a charging station that's nearby, you can click that. So there's that, and then of course you've got radio and Bluetooth media player and all that sort of stuff. But this is effectively an Android tablet you've got here. So if you want to add more apps, you can. You can just go to the Google Play Store, and something you might want to do, for instance, is you might want to download Spotify or Waze or Amazon Prime or Angry Birds if you want to play that. Or you might want to do a better route planner. So if you didn't want to rely on Google Maps, you could just use a better route planner instead. A better route planner has far more functions really for finding chargers. I've used it with varying degrees of success while I'm driving along, but generally for planning a route it's quite good. So even though I've said that you don't have to do any planning in this, if you really wanted to, then you could. Rome. The great thing is that a better route planner knows that this is the Polestar, and it knows that it's got 21% battery at the moment. If you did want to use a better route planner, it's a good way of working out where you might want to stay for hotels if you're doing a long journey. And in fact, watch my video about that, because I go into a little bit more detail about how we plan journeys when we go on a long trip. So this is saying 9 charges, and it's actually showing mainly Tesla superchargers, because of course you can use this as Tesla superchargers. And the good thing is that the charging port is on the same side as it is on Teslas, so that does make it a little bit easier. You're not using up 2 stalls if you park this at a supercharger, unlike a lot of other EVs, unfortunately. You see there's not really many options in here. The infotainment is quite sparse. Steering feel, you've got light, standard, firm. I've actually like it on firm, but I put it on standard for now. You've got one pedal drive. If you haven't driven an EV before, then one pedal drive is, I think, one of the best things about an EV. You get instant feedback, so you take your foot off the accelerator and it slows down. And when it does slow down, it's recharging the battery when it does it. So that's called regenerative braking. Most EVs have some form of regenerative braking. They might just have what's called a B mode, which increases the regen a little bit. This has low, which is like a B mode, and it has standard, which is proper one pedal driving, where you hardly have to use the brake pedal at all. The only issue with the one pedal driving like that is that I find that it's great for the driver, but for passengers they might find it's a little bit like that, and they might, if they're prone to vomiting, then that's probably not going to be great for them. So you can turn it off completely, of course, and just coast along like you would a normal car, but it's good that you've got the options. I do prefer it in the Korean cars like Hyundai and Kia, where you've got paddles here for adjusting the regen. I do prefer that. You've got creep on and off. If you don't know what creep is, it's like a standard automatic car. When it has creep, you take your foot off the brake and it starts to move along. Actually, I quite like that, but I've got it off here. You've got a sport mode which turns off traction control. In the charge menu, you've got a charge limit, so if you don't want to charge to 100% all the time to preserve the battery, even though that's not too much of an issue really, unless you have a car sitting for a long time at 100%, that's not so good. But anyway, if you want to set a charge limit, you can. In fact, it actually says 90% is Polestar recommended to preserve the lifespan of the battery. You can change the amps if you want to. This is really good if you are charging on a normal home socket. If you want to reduce the amps, that's actually quite a good idea, because it prevents overheating of the socket. A lot of sockets aren't really meant for a sustained high load from an electric car for hours and hours and hours. You can also set a charging schedule. And if I click on the more thing, we've got car status, and it says no warnings, everything is fine, and all that kind of stuff. Locking, and you've got different options for that. Wipers and all this sort of stuff. Anyway. Oh, and there is power off car there. So if you really did want to turn off power of the car completely, then you can do that. So that's pretty much everything. You've got these profiles you can do, so you can add profiles. I'm the only one that's
driving this car, so I've just got one set up. If you set your profile on there, then things like the seat can be set to that. And if you use the app, which is really good by the way, if you use the app as a digital key, it means you don't have to take your key fob with you, and you can just use the app, and that will set the seat memory and things like that. And by the way, the settings, they persist. So one pedal drive is set to low. Next time you get in the car, it will still be on low, and same with the steering wheel, all the other things. So that's the infotainment. You've also got manual down there, and you have lots of settings here as well, which I'm not going to go into, but I just find the infotainment, I think, is really good. It's pretty crisp and clear, easy to use, and yeah, I like it very much.
Okay, well, it's stopped raining for a little bit. Let's go for a drive. Obviously, I've had this for a month, and I've been driving it quite a lot and doing quite long journeys in it as well. And it's actually been a pleasure to drive. This is 0 to 62 or 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 7.4 seconds. It's not the quickest. If you want the quickest, get the performance version. But it's pretty good. I mean, it feels fast enough for me. It feels fast enough for most people, surely. And it's lovely to drive. And going around corners, it holds the road so well. Obviously, being a saloon-style car, there's like no body roll that you would get in an SUV. This one is front-wheel drive. As I said, the newer version is rear-wheel drive. That will probably be a bit more engaging. And visibility is good. I feel like I've got a decent amount of windscreen to look at. It's a shame there's no HUD. I do like HUD, but because I've got the dash, all the information I need is on there. Although I would like efficiency to be shown on there all the time, and it's not. So I would like that. The WLTP range for this car is 335 miles, which you're not going to get. I mean, efficiency is better than I thought it was going to be, but it's not going to be that. EV Database is a pretty good source for knowledge, and that says 260 miles real world range, which I think is about right, really. There's quite a whine on the motor, and I've not heard that in very many other cars. Certainly not cars as premium as this one. So that's surprising. So it's been a pleasure having it really for this month. I've had 3 cars to choose from. Our Leaf, our e-Niro, and this one. And I did tend to go for this one most of the time. Obviously an app shouldn't be that important for cars, but these days I think it is, especially if you've used Tesla's app, which is by far the best that you'll ever use. But the Polestar one comes pretty close, actually. You can do all the basics, like, check your battery percentage and find out where the car is and do climate control and charge scheduling, that kind of thing. But you can even find out the specifications. In fact, I should have just walked around with this instead of trying to memorize the width and length and all the rest of it. So you can find out what specs your car's got. So that's pretty cool. Ground clearance, there we go. 151 millimeters. I forgot to mention that. So what do I think of the Polestar 2 then? I really like it. I really like it. I think I was expecting to like it though. That's the funny thing. It just ticks my boxes. It really appeals to me, the look of it, the attention to detail. What isn't so great is the internal space. That feels a bit compromised. And given our main car is a Kia e-Niro, which is a shorter car, it's obviously got a smaller boot, but you do feel you have much more space inside, especially in the back. That transmission tunnel, battery tunnel, whatever you want to call it, is pretty rubbish, really. But I think the materials are quite well done. It's comfortable. Visibility is pretty good. But the main thing with this, I think, is that Google, having the Google operating system is amazing. If you've got any reservations about having an EV, this is the kind of car that I would recommend to anyone, because, as I say, it tells you where to charge, tells you how long to charge for, and you've got the complete confidence in knowing that when it tells you you're going to get to a location with a certain battery percentage, it will be correct. So, I love the Polestar. I'm a little bit smitten by it, actually. Thank you very much for watching this video. Please press the subscribe button and the bell icon to be notified of other videos. And I'll be back very soon. Bye for now.